I guess it was in the late 90s. I had my first professional job, money in my pocket, and I went to I was in the mood for a new car, something different. So I went to the local used car place, and they had the cars on the lot, and then inside, you know, in the showroom area, they have the nice cars. And so I walked inside, and there was it was a Rolls Royce. It was I think it was a 1984 model. It was gray colored. I don't think it was one of those like silver something or whatever. It was just a gray 1984 model Rolls Royce. And, you know, just for fun, I walked over and looked at the price tag, and it said $12,800. And I looked again to make sure I wasn't missing something, because this was in my price range. I could afford this car. And I didn't confuse a 1 for a 7 or something. I mean, the price was $12,800. So I opened the door, and I looked inside. It was a brownish interior, leather seats, leather, you know, everything, the dashboard. It was an 84 model, but it was as if you had opened the dashboard to an older car. I mean, you had straight lines, old-fashioned looking buttons. You know, there was nothing futuristic about the interior. When I looked at the seats, they looked like, I mean, they weren't bench seats. They were individual seats, but I wouldn't call them bucket seats. It was kind of like individual seats in a bench format, and they didn't look that comfortable. The leather of the seats was very, very soft, and I remember I sat in the driver's seat, and it didn't feel anything like it looked. I mean, it was the most comfortable car seat I've ever sat in. It was fabulous. The leather was very, very soft, and it was very, very cushioned with something. These were very, very soft, and when you sat in that seat, it was a snug fit. It felt very nice. It was a comfortable seat. The steering wheel was a little funky. It was a large steering wheel, I think, but it was a nice fit. And I remember sitting there in the driver's seat, looking out the window. You looked out the window, and there was that Rolls-Royce emblem sticking up out of the hood, and it felt kind of comfy. And it was in my price range. So I was thinking, I sat there in the driver's seat as I felt that seat and felt that wheel and looked across the front of the hood to see that emblem, and I could picture parking that car in my condo, which was in downtown, little historic town in Northern Virginia. And I pictured all the neighbors, you know, oh my God, what the hell is that? I remember when I was growing up in my mother's garage, and she was in an apartment building in Baltimore, and in her garage, in a parking space near our parking space, was a Rolls Royce, and every time people would walk by, they would stop and look at it. So I could see my neighbors stopping and looking, and people, you know, look at the Rolls Royce. Next, I pictured that goofy-looking smile girls have when they get into a really nice car, except it would be that goofy-looking smile times 50, because, you know, you picked up your date in a Rolls Royce. And I sat there, and I could feel me driving around the area in my Rolls Royce, picking up clients. So in about a minute or two, I arrived at the conclusion that this may in fact be the car for me. So I motioned to the sales guy, because you never tell the sales guy, well, I've decided to buy this. So I motioned to the sales guy, and I said, what's the story on this one? And he said, well, it's in great shape all around, but it needs a brake job. And I thought, you know, brake job, you know, big deal. So I just kind of nonchalantly said, well, what's involved with that? And he looked at me and he said, well, we've bid it out to a number of different Rolls-Royce service guys, and the best estimate we've come back with, or the best estimate that's come back to us, is about $14,500. So I very, very, very gently got out of the car and closed the door. About 5 or 6 years later, I was again looking around for a newer car, so I went back to the used car place. And this time, sitting in the showroom was that Magnum PI Ferrari. I think that's a late 70s model Ferrari, I think, and it was the best looking one they ever made. It was the one that all of you who remember Magnum PI, Tom Selleck, it was that Ferrari exactly, and it was red. And just for fun, I walked over to look at the price tag because, you know, like you, I've heard the story that, oh, Ferrari is the only car in the world that's value appreciates. So I assumed it would be unbelievable. So I walked over and looked at the price tag. And the price tag on the car was $32,000, $32,500 or something like that. So I thought, my God, this is a car I can afford. I can afford this car. And so I opened up the door and looked in and had a seat. It was comfortable. It wasn't anywhere near as comfortable as the Rolls-Royce. And I remembered the Rolls-Royce, and I thought to myself, well, I'll bet you this needs like a $15,000 brake job. So I motioned to the salesman and I said, you know, I thought Ferraris appreciated in value. Why is this car only $32,000? And he very quickly explained to me that that was a myth, that in fact Ferraris, some models do, but the vast majority of Ferraris do not appreciate in value. And in fact, you can buy these models for about $32,000. And so at that point, instantaneously, I could see me driving that Ferrari around Northern Virginia. I could see the goofy look on the faces of my dates as I got into my Ferrari. I pictured me picking up women off the streets, hot women who would jump into my Ferrari just to go for a ride. I saw me parking that Ferrari in my parking space at my little condo place. You know, the neighbors gathered around looking at the Ferrari. And so I looked at the salesman and I said to him, well, what's the deal? Does it need a $15,000 brake job? And he said, no, it's fine. It's ready to go. It's got its inspection sticker. It's mechanically ready to go. So I said, okay, well, what do I need to know about this? And he said, the first thing he said was, well, you really don't want to be driving it, which of course didn't make a world of sense to me. And I said, I don't understand. And he said, well, you know, you'll want a car to drive. This is just to have. In other words, number one, you can't drive it in the rain because you might damage the car. So I looked at him just instinctively and said, so I guess rain or ice and snow is out of the question. And he laughed. Ha 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 ha. Apparently that's funny to Ferrari people. Next, he explained there may be some emissions issues in some communities, meaning the car may not, in fact, be legal in some places in Virginia. Next, he explained that servicing can be difficult. It takes sometimes up to 4 weeks to get an appointment, and labor costs for Ferrari servicing average around $2,000 an hour. So I said, just instinctively, I assume that doesn't include parts. And again, he laughed, ha 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 ha, because apparently that's funny to Ferrari people. Next, he explained that I couldn't actually drive it on all roads because some roads may damage the car. So I'll need to scout out roads in advance on which I can drive the car. So then I very, very gently got out of the car, very gently closed the door. And as I was preparing to walk away, I one more time glanced at the sticker, and this time I noticed estimated highway gas mileage of 8 miles per gallon.